So before we work in Photoshop for the iPad, we need to crop our images in your Photos app. So this is just going to an image, going to edit, and this can work on a variety of different photo editing programs. So don't feel like you have to use um, Apple Photos to do this. So I'm going to go down to the crop tool, which is on the left side. And I'm going to go up to the right. You'll see a red word that says revert and then some little squares, and I'll click on that. And down at the bottom, we want to crop it to a 5:7. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crop. I'm going to kind of move it over a little bit. You can move your crop around the image if you want to. And then I'm going to go ahead and say done. And what that should do is save it to my files that I'm going to be working with. And now I'm going to open it and work with it in my Photoshop. So to open a file in Photoshop for your iPad, I'm going to go down to Import and Open. And for me, I'm going to say Files, but yours is probably right under Photos where you had it. And I'm going to go and navigate to the image that I was looking for. So here I've got my picture that I'm going to go through and I'm going to edit. The first thing that I want to do is I want to make an adjustment for the levels. And so I'm going to go to this little plus button on the right hand side and say new adjustment layer. And then I'm going to go to levels, which is almost all the way down to the bottom. I've got my black shadow, which is my slider for my shadow area. I've got my slider on the right, which is for my highlights. Most typically what you're going to do is use the gamma slider, which is right there in the middle. So this will make it either lighter or darker, depending on what you want for your image. So I'm going to make mine a little bit lighter. And now one of the things I can do is I can go back into my layers palette and I can turn it on and off, and you can see the difference between the two. So I'll go through and I'll kind of manipulate it. I'll push it a little bit farther so you can see when I turn it on and off. The next type of adjustment layer that we're going to make is a curves adjustment. The way that curves work is that you're going to drop a point. So just click right in the middle of the grid, and if you pull it up, you've got a lightening curve. If you pull it down, you have a darkening curve. If I pull it too far down, that does not look so good. So you want to make subtle adjustments with this, either making it lighter or darker. One of the reasons that we use curves is so that we can add contrast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a point right in the middle. I'm going to drop a point halfway down the grid, halfway up the grid. I'm going to take this bottom point and pull it down. I'm going to make my shadows darker. And I'm going to take this top point and I'm going to move it up, which is going to make my highlights even brighter. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up to curves. I'm going to turn it on and off, and you can see it's a much poppier image now. So that's one way that you can go through and you can make adjustments for your image. Another adjustment that you might want to make, so we're going to go over to the new adjustment layer button, say new adjustment layer. And then the other thing that we can also manipulate is our color balance. So I'm going to click right here for color balance. And the most typical color balance issues that you're going to see is that your image looks too warm or too cool. So if your image looks too yellow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add blue to it. And conversely, if your image is too blue, you're going to add some yellow to it. You want to be careful that you don't push these to extremes. These are subtle adjustments that you're making. Magenta and green are the other two colors that you might have a little bit more of. So if your image looks a little too green, you can add some magenta to it. But this is one way that you can kind of go in and adjust your image. Once you are happy with your adjustments, we're going to go up here to the Publish and Export option. I'm going to click on Publish and Export, and it gives me some different options. Right now, what I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm going to save it as a JPEG. I want to make sure that my quality is set to maximum. My format can be optimized if I want to say that, and then I'll go ahead and say Export. It'll say, what do you want to do with it? For me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say Save Image, and then it'll appear right in my Pictures folder, which is where I can find it.